Hello and welcome to another fully live Q&A episode of Hacking with Friends. My name is Kody Kinzie. I'm a security researcher at Varonis, and today I'm joined by my friend and fellow hacker Alex, who, as some of you guessed, was having a little bit of trouble with his laptop. So thank you for hanging around, everyone, and Alex, thank you for being here today.
Of course, per usual, laptop trouble.
Yeah. So if you do you know anybody at, I don't know, Lenovo or something that's looking for a great person to promote their new laptops? I happen to know a very visible person who uses their computer all the time in all sorts of creative ways and frequently destroys them.
Yep.
That would be a great person to test the durability of their new products. So if you know anyone at Lenovo, definitely hook us up.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so it's been quite a week for us. Alex, what's been going on with Nugget News?
Quite a lot. So I hosted a workshop last Saturday at Nullspace Labs. So it was a beginner introduction to keystroke injection techniques, and also I covered basically the hacking methodology and how you could apply that to creating effective Ducky script payloads. So that was really cool. A lot of people turned up for that. And I'm also thinking of maybe turning that into an online class just based off how popular it was. I got to develop some pretty cool payloads for that. If you guys are interested in checking out the slides for that workshop, they're published online on our GitHub repo. You could check that out at github.com/hackhattech/nugget workshops if you want to switch over to my screen. Voila.
Enlarge a little bit if you don't mind.
Yeah, so going forward, this is probably where I'm going to be putting slides for other workshops that we're going to be hosting and stuff like that. So here you can see the keystroke injection fundamentals class, which I did at Nullspace Labs. So if you guys want to learn about the basics of writing Ducky script and also the general methodology that we use when constructing payloads, you can check that out here, as well as some other pretty cool example payloads covering exfiltration, reconnaissance, enumeration, and stuff like that.
Yeah, so pretty good value considering this was a paid class, and Alex might even be turning this into like another paid class in the future. So probably won't be sharing all the slides from the future like paid classes. But I mean, if you can't make it in Los Angeles, it's always good to be able to check it out and see what exactly the hype is all about. So getting started with these payloads is also really cool because we were able to support Nullspace Labs, which is a super cool hackerspace in Los Angeles. So if you switch over to my screen real quick, you can see this is what the class looked like. And I also shared this with a couple of people, and Alex was right in the process of showing how to make a fake ransomware payload. So it actually kind of looks like we're training like ransomware affiliates, but I assure you that is not what we're doing. Even though I feel like it would be good on some level to support local business. Maybe not that kind of business though. So anyway, big shout out to Nullspace Labs for allowing Alex to host this workshop. And thank you to everybody who came to this workshop because you also help support this awesome hackerspace in Los Angeles. So yeah, very cool that they let us do that workshop there. And if you haven't checked it out already, Nullspace Labs is an awesome hackerspace and super fun to check out. Do you remember when their open nights are?
I believe
Thursday?
Thursday?
Oh,
I forgot.
I think it's Thursday, but it could be Tuesday. But check out their meetup groups. They have all their stuff on there. And you can also check out our meetup group to go to Alex's future workshops. It's called Cyber Weapons Lab LA. And if you're in the Southern California area, then you can definitely check out some future workshops there.
Yep.
All right. Any other Nugget news?
Besides that, mostly just like maintenance stuff. I've been working on like creating an inventory management system, some other boring stuff like that. Nothing I can think of off the top of my head. We do have a question though from Eric about Raspberry Pis. He says, Raspberry Pi setup where you plug it in and it automatically starts to capture any nearby handshakes, just making a Pi automatically to do this command when it's turned on. I know you've worked a lot with reconnaissance and stuff on the Raspberry Pi. And I believe at one point you also had just like an antenna setup like 24/7, just gathering reconnaissance. Out here, do you have any suggestions for tools or what this person might want to do for that?
I'm sorry. Our chat has been hijacked by somebody who, by the way, please don't do super chats. It goes, we don't know where it goes, but it doesn't go to us. But somebody apparently asked us how to hack bank accounts, which, by the way, we saw your chat. We just can't answer that because it's a crime and we don't give advice on how to commit crimes. And now is furious and wants their money back from the super chat. Well, hey, you got your money's worth. You now know that what you asked is illegal. So, but although that isn't legal advice, I'm just speaking in generality. So Sorry, what was that other question? I was a little distracted by the super chat drama.
Someone wants to set up an automatic Raspberry Pi thing to gather reconnaissance and capture Wi-Fi handshakes.
Yeah, just do a bash script. So like oftentimes if I needed to do that, I would have one of two solutions. One of them is a ducky script and the second is a bash script. For a ducky script, I would just let my Pi boot up and then plug in like some sort of ducky script device and run it, and it would just do all the commands necessary to get started doing capture. Super easy. Alternatively, you can arrange this to kind of do it itself by start creating a job that automatically runs when the Pi starts up, and just having a bash script that runs all the necessary programs to do whatever kind of capture you want. That's how I would recommend. You can also expose an SSH port, create an access point, and then just log in manually and do that if you don't want to do it completely automatically. But from the question, it sounds like you want to be able to do it automatically. So those would be my two recommendations. And I actually did a nullbyte article on how to write a ducky script payload that automates like Wi-Fi capture on the Raspberry Pi. So I think that could be like actually exactly what you're looking for.
Nice.
All right. Any other immediate questions?
Stanley says, I got your Wi-Fi device. Can I put Python on it instead of Arduino? Yeah, depending on, I presume you got the Wi-Fi Nugget. So the Wi-Fi Nugget, you can put MicroPython on that. We hosted a workshop in the past. It was actually a Halloween-themed workshop where we used MicroPython to control like Halloween lights and display animations and some other festive things like that. So the Wi-Fi Nugget can run MicroPython, but what's cool about the USB Nugget is it supports CircuitPython, which Kody's been working with quite a lot. That's a little more advanced, and as far as I'm aware, more documented and has more libraries and stuff like that available.
Yeah. So I would say the big difference is MicroPython is a little bit more difficult to work with because it doesn't work over USB. So our primary kind of like selling point of the USB Nugget is everything works over USB. It mounts universally on any device you're working on. So you could be on an iOS device or an Android device and be able to just drag and drop a payload on and it should work. So, and that's super cool. Like you can like edit your Python via USB. Like it's very, very cool. You can do MicroPython over like Wi-Fi, and that kind of works. You can also do it over serial, but that takes a little bit more knowledge of like command line. So I would say that CircuitPython is always the easiest to work with, but MicroPython is great. My only raga on MicroPython is all the documentation is excellent, but ancient, but it still seems to work. So you'll find like literally documentation from like 6 years ago or something, and it'll be the only documentation for how to do like a super critical function. And then like it works, but it just makes me very nervous that it hasn't been updated in such a long period of time, or at least the documentation hasn't. So another piece of news, let me see if I can pull this up.
Oh boy.
I'm not gonna, all right, so if we switch over to my screen, I was actually quoted in doing some research based on a tool called DNS Twist. So DNS Twist is a tool that allows you to detect typo squatting attacks by looking at a domain and seeing whether somebody has registered a bunch of other domains that are very closely associated with it. Now, I'm gonna save this for perhaps the news segment, but just scrolling through the latest articles on Bleeping Computer, you could probably guess which one of these is the one that my research contributed to based on all the words I just said. So the actual URL is super not safe for work. So we're not going to go ahead and go there right now. But it is notable that there were over 50 different domains that were pushing malicious programs and lots of other stuff around this very, very popular URL that apparently gets 10 million views per month. Or I think that's what they were saying on the article. So it was really cool to see some of my research around like malicious typo squatting actually get used. And it was an interesting day to wake up to a bunch of messages from people that read this on Bleeping Computer. So cool to have my my security research put out there, and also a very interesting campaign. I tend to find these sorts of campaigns to crop up around any website that becomes sufficiently popular. And this one in particular didn't seem to be super customized to the URL it was attacking. My suspicion is that it might have been part of a campaign where people just noticed that a website's becoming very popular and then design a bunch of typo squatting attacks around it without really reacting to the kind of content that's being served. So if this was a bit more sophisticated, where if it was trying to emulate the actual website that it was typo squatting, I might think that this was a bit more sophisticated. But based on some of the information that Bleeping Computer turned up, it seems as though this was a fairly generic attack that could basically happen against any sort of website that's just becoming popular rapidly and might have some people accidentally type in a wrong address. So if you want to search for this sort of attack yourself, maybe make it into a news article on Bleeping Computer, check out DNS Twist and just run some very common websites or popular websites, especially newer websites, through it. And you might find that there's a lot of web domains that are registered around typos of that domain. And that's indicative of this sort of attack. So super interesting and fun research I got to do, and very, very weird to wake up to a news headline about it. So yeah.
Someone asks, is DNS Quest a web-based tool? I think they mean DNS Twist, but no, it's a Python tool, correct?
DNS Quest, I think, is a separate tool.
Oh.
So I'm gonna have to Google it. But
no, I think they might have misheard.
Okay, yeah, DNS Twist is just a Python tool. So my recommendation for that is if you want to try it out yourself and like, you know, you're on whatever computer, you can just, if you have a Gmail account, you can use Google Cloud Suite, and it allows you to open up like a virtual machine in a browser and just like do command line stuff. So I just install DNS Twist, run it on a domain, and then I get a list of the results back, and I never even have to install the tool on my own computer. Python is installed by default on the virtual machines that Google Cloud Shell gives you. So yeah, I've been recommending reporters and other people that are doing this sort of research use those tools just so they can try out interesting third-party tools without necessarily running it on their own system.
Can you tell us which alpha adapter is able to work with host APD to use it like a little access point for deauthentication or man in the middle? I've used quite a few for host APD. So that's basically just a service that lets you create a Wi-Fi access point using like dongles or something like that on your machine. So that's typically used for like man in the middle stuff, which I've used it for in the past. I think I used, I don't remember the name of those alpha adapters. They have some pretty crazy names. It's just the regular like 2.4 gigahertz one though. Do you have any suggestions for alpha adapters?
So I haven't used one for the specific application you're talking about. Alpha actually has a line of like outdoor adapters that are designed to take like cellular signals and then repeat them into like a Wi-Fi adapter and things like that. So I actually got to test some of that stuff, and it completely eliminated my need to use an existing wireless network adapter to create an access point, because I could just put in like my Google Fi like SIM card, and boom, I would have just a spare access point if I needed it. So that was so convenient that I never tried out host APD with like very many of their adapters. So unfortunately, I don't have a good recommendation. But I would say the black, I think it's the NEH, no, either the NE or the NA would be my recommendations for an extremely stable 2.4 gigahertz alpha. And then somebody was also pointing out that Panda Wireless is also a good cheap alternative.
Oh, yeah.
So we have a lot of really good questions. One person was saying that there was a book from my older Hack 5 videos that had the word codes on it, and nobody was able to really see very clearly what that book was. So I got a lot of questions about it. I just saw it in my closet. So Alex here is going to answer a question while I run and grab that book for you. Just 1 second.
All right, what's up, y'all? We're going to take a look at some of the questions that we have maybe on some of our older videos. So if we switch over to my screen, I'm going to go ahead and take that. So this was a video that we published last week. It was, can you be hacked through the mail for $10? And this basically featured a warshipping proof of concept where we mailed a package to a company and saw how this thing sitting inside of a mailroom could be used in order to gather reconnaissance on employees, host a phishing page, and stuff like that. So the question is, was it...
Go on.
Okay, we're not sharing my screen, but the question is, was it re-uploaded because of the battery thing? I don't remember those disclaimers in the original video. Yeah, so we had two problems with that video. One was our corporate sponsor wasn't exactly happy with the ad that we put in it, so we had to take it down for that, which then triggered a review from Darren because we didn't have the proper disclaimers for the battery in compliance with some random legal stuff. So yeah, it was mostly because of the battery.
So one person is asking, any new projects for the ESP32S3? Oh, I didn't see the S3. I thought S2. I haven't seen any yet. I actually have an ESP32S3 in the unexpected maker form factor, which I think is really cool, and I like it a lot. But I don't have any projects I've tried on it yet. So yeah, we've been pretty busy with Nugget stuff, so that's my excuse for it. I have been working on a CircuitPython project that should port over to the S3 just fine. It's actually made for the ESP32S2. But in doing so, I found a flaw in the way that CircuitPython handles open Wi-Fi networks that completely prevents me from moving forward with my research. Okay, so first, let me answer that question. The book is called Ciphers, Secrets, and Cryptic Communication, Making and Breaking Secret Messages from Hieroglyphics to the Internet. This is a great book, or at least it's a good book. There's another one I like more of. The other background book for Nullbyte and Hack5 was also Locks and Locksmithing, the complete book of 5th edition. So this also was in the background for a lot of those videos. Okay, so the point of my project that I'm currently doing some research on is to grab all the different Wi-Fi networks around you. And that's kind of like a location identifier, because there's lots of different APIs you can query, where if you can see Wi-Fi networks around a person, you can tell exactly where they are. So my project is going to use, right now, one of our nuggets, but any ESP32 S2 or S3 board to find the networks around you, look for an open Wi-Fi network, attempt to connect to it, and then send a DNS query to a canary token that contains all of the Wi-Fi networks that were observed. So the point of this is it creates a tracker that uses open Wi-Fi networks that it just happens to stumble upon to transmit its location at the time. So this is pretty useful if you're trying to like track something, but you don't want to use conventional means like a cellular connection or something like that. And instead use a completely passive tracker that's just waiting for a connection to upload a very small piece of data that lets you know where it is. So the problem with this is right now on CircuitPython 7.3.3, if you attempt to connect to an open Wi-Fi network that doesn't give you an IP address, it freezes forever. And that doesn't throw an error. It doesn't let you do anything or time out. It just freezes. The second problem is in the new CircuitPython 8.0, you can't even connect to an open Wi-Fi network. There's a bug where it says SSID not found. So I've opened up a bug in the CircuitPython GitHub about this, but that's my current research that I'm working on that could kind of transport over to other ESP32 S3 and S2 boards. It's a fun Wi-Fi tracker that allows you to utilize just existing infrastructure to figure out exactly where you are or exactly where this chip is. And I think it's going to be a fun project once I get the bug addressed in CircuitPython. Always kind of a bummer to find out that it's the language you're working with that's having issues and not necessarily your code, because my first inclination was, oh, my code sucks. But now I've narrowed it down to a single line that should always work but doesn't, or behaves differently on each version of CircuitPython. So as a developer, that was my week, trying to make a new project and then finding out that the language I was working with is actually kind of the limiting factor on this one.
Yeah, it sucks. There are some of those limitations with CircuitPython. It's such a new language too. I honestly got pretty frustrated developing with it when we tried to create like the initial proof of concept for the USB nugget. Just because there's like there's a built-in feature, let's call it, that prevents you from writing to the memory at the same time like that the program does. So if you wanted to like save a file to the internal storage, if the program itself was trying to access that file, it was simply impossible. So that was kind of stupid.
Okay, so we got another question. What method did you guys use to ingest how to use all the tools offered by Kali or Parrot OS? So I started out by just trying to use them randomly and quickly learned that I didn't know what the hell any of them were doing. So I really had to focus on what I already knew in terms of networking, like attack framework, or which tools I was able to specifically look up that were already related to stuff I knew in order to get any value out of them. Frankly, if you don't know anything about like the attacker's kill chain or like all these other things, then you're just like familiar with a couple like very specific things, then like opening up, I don't know, Metasploit is going to be super confusing because you're not going to know what it's doing. If you have zero knowledge of how packets work and you open up Wireshark, it's going to be super confusing because like, it might not be something that actually gives you valuable information or tells you what's going on. It could just overwhelm you with information that makes no sense to you. So I actually started out by using the ones that were like easy, or they were so straightforward or single purpose that they were easy to learn. That's like Nmap or like, tools like that are like very generic, easy to find guides on, like so you can use it on your own network for valuable purposes, ARP scanning, like really simple frameworks like Routersploit, like some of these like very simple things that were already kind of in my lane of what I understood, made it really easy to figure out what they were for. And that's the biggest problem. Like sometimes you can't tell what the hell some of these things are for, because if it's outside of your domain, then you're probably not going to be able to get a lot of value out of them. So I would say assess what you know already and stick with the ones that make sense to you or for kind of a single purpose thing. Because a lot of these are like crazy like stagers or obfuscators for like making your payloads like invisible. And if you're just getting started, that's not probably very useful for you to go through and learn every single tool that might be, for like, you don't like, why are you learning Ghidra? You know, if you have no intention of going into reverse engineering, you know, like it's cool to know how to open it, but like all the information is going to be gibberish to you if you don't know anything about reverse engineering. So like that would be my advice, is like there's plenty of ways to feel like an idiot, like opening up tools in Kali that are super powerful but don't relate to what you already know. But yeah.
Yeah, I would say that's pretty solid. When I first got started, of course, I was a little bit of a script kiddie. I was like just introduced to Kali Linux and was super eager to like jump on all these tools. One of the first ones that I heard about was actually Metasploit, and I was like quickly overwhelmed. I was like, what the hell are all these like modules? What's a framework? Like, what do I use all this for? I did find that at that point I was like kind of familiar with some like GUI interface based apps like Fing and stuff like that I could run on my phone to do like network scans and that kind of thing. So I think like where I started learning stuff was like trying to figure out how to replicate that functionality of like doing enumeration or scans or things like that via the command line. And I would look up like one-off ways or like tools that were used for those specific purposes. I think actually before I started touching most of the built-in tools inside of like Kali or Parrot, I was actually using a lot more like Python scripts or like other stuff that I researched on the internet before I actually used any of the built-in stuff. Like before I actually used frameworks or tools like Aircrack or that kind of thing. I believe I was using I got started with AirGeddon actually, which is like a tool that like strings all those together. But there are some like better high-level things out there that you can get started with as well.
So another person, Peter Null, asked, hey, same last name. How would you defend yourself against a DAuth attack on your device, since DAuth are valid packets and that serve a legitimate function? Well, our audience is actually amazing because you guys have mostly answered this correctly already. The newer standards of Wi-Fi, like WPA3, explicitly protect against this sort of attack. So just upgrading to WPA3 would pretty much disable this attack immediately. Another thing that's useful would be tracking down the source of the attack. So you can do all sorts of defenses, like being able to like hop around on channels. And like that works a lot of the time. And a lot of newer access points will just switch channels if someone's attacking them. But it might eventually be a good idea to figure out like where the attack is coming from. And that's where we have some guides on like fox hunting and stuff like that, where if I was seeing like an active deauthentication attack and I know how to do basic fox hunting, like I'm going to be knocking on a door and asking them to stop, you know? Like if it is something that's track downable. So if it's like a neighbor or a specific device like nearby, it's relatively easy to track down the source of an active deauthentication attack because it is so noisy. So I would say the best defense would be figuring out where it's coming from. And with Wireshark or some of the other tutorials we've shown, actually even using our Wi-Fi nugget and the v3 deauthor, it's possible to do fox hunting with a pretty good degree of sensitivity. So obviously it's easier to do it with the directional antenna, but you can use an omnidirectional antenna too for like a hot and cold style search. But with an directional antenna, you can sweep it around like a spotlight and be able to get a precise angle as well as a signal strength. So yeah, lots of different ways to do that. And thank you to everybody who answered that question in the chat. You guys are awesome. Please shout me out for me to know this is getting through. Thanks a lot. You're well, Master Media. I've got great news for you. Your message was received, processed, and there's your response. Is that book still in print? I don't know. I got this off the internet a long time ago, but you know, there's a lot of other good books on like ciphers and cryptography. This one was, I think, my second favorite of the ones I have.
What is your favorite book?
I don't remember. I haven't seen it in a while. It's in my collection somewhere. I used to include it in the background of like the null byte videos, but it's actually the one that my cipher is based off of. I use that book as a reference when designing it.
Peter says, so how do you capture handshakes now? Hope the person connects while you're listening because you won't be able to deauth them anymore. Yeah, if you're gathering passive reconnaissance, you'll have to wait for an event where what?
PMKID.
Oh, well, there's that.
Yeah. So nowadays there's an attack called the PMKID attack that makes it so you do not need to wait for a device to join a network anymore. What Alex was mentioning was the biggest limitation to handshake capturing attacks for a long time. But starting in like 2018 or 2019, the PMKID attack became much better integrated into more common Wi-Fi hacking tools. So now if you use virtually any sort of Wi-Fi hacking tool, it will have a PMKID capture as well as the standard deauthentication and then reassociation capture. So that's two different ways you can grab a handshake. It's super easy if someone's connected, but it's no longer necessary for that to happen anymore in order for you to grab a handshake. So that's a really cool advance that's happened in Wi-Fi hacking within the last like 4 or 5 years. So it's something where if you thought you needed to have somebody connected, you don't need to anymore. And that's really cool.
Nice.
How's the new boards coming along on the Nuggets?
Shoot, yeah, so we got those prototypes about a week ago that were completely dysfunctional because I forgot to connect the ground plane to them. We got a newer revision of
Wait,
the
that was like
boards.
3 weeks ago.
It's all the same to me.
Oh my God.
It's all a plot. Yeah, but we just got a newer revision of the boards that seem to be working fine, so hopefully those will be in circulation as soon as possible.
So more specifically, like we have a run of Nuggets that are in production right now. We just sent the money through 2 days ago. So we're anticipating about a month until we see these particular boards. So I would say in about 2 months, you might expect to see some of these boards. Now, again, they're going to have the exact same capabilities as our existing boards. The only difference right now is they're going to have a couple additional components, optional components that can be soldered on if you want to, that allow you to connect like additional sensors and stuff like that. So it's not like we're adding like a ton of new features or things like that. It's really just like adding some more convenience things and making it so that if you're using it for development or scientific purposes, it's a little bit easier to connect like commercial sensors or other things that have like standardized inputs. So altogether pretty cool, but not like super groundbreaking. We do have an SMD version that is currently frozen. Unfortunately, we have too much to deal with right now when it comes to just getting our first Hack 5 shipment shipped, which should be happening in the next couple of days. So we're really excited about that, but we do have to hold off on the SMD version for probably another couple months just because of the amount of crunch we have to do with this. But expect to see some prototypes around. It's always fun to keep up, but unfortunately, they won't be available for sale for at least, or I'm going to say like 4 months or so, just because of all the other things we have to get our product doing, such as fixing all the bugs, making sure that it's doing everything our users are requesting, and then accommodating a couple of very cool and interesting feature requests that a lot of you have specifically put in for. So look forward to some of your requests, and especially things that have been submitted via our GitHub. If you are somebody that already has one of the USB nuggets and you have an idea for how it can be even better than it is today, then make sure to go on the GitHub and leave a feature request or a bug report or whichever is applicable, and we'll be happy to take a look at it and try to integrate it into the next version of what we're making.
Yep.
All right.
Is AirCrack any good for Wi-Fi hacking?
Yeah. I mean, it stands up to the job.
It's one of the baseline tools that a lot of other Wi-Fi hacking tools are kind of based off of. I'd say like having, knowing how to work with the AirCrack suite is definitely valuable.
Somebody else was saying that they were going to be very upset if they didn't see my previous shirt in this video. I regret to inform you that if you don't like this shirt, it is actually unpatriotic. So sorry, I had to fly the flag today. Somebody wants to see a furry case for the Nugget. I've never considered this, but it would immediately make it look like a Furby. Maybe that's the point. Somebody has actually said at one point we were delivered like a very fleshy pink color. Do you remember the flesh colored?
Yeah, I was considering also making like a little silicone like wrap for the Nugget case, so you could have like a gross organic feeling Nugget that you could squish around. But yes, I do remember the flesh filament and destroyed our printer.
Buses Can Fly is asking if I can blink.
Can you?
Donate, and I'll blink. I gotta save something. I'm not gonna give it all away on the stream. Yeah, the furry case would actually be horrifying and hilarious. We mostly work with 3D printed stuff, so I'm not sure how we would make that happen. But if one of our artistic followers would like to share with us the process for making a furry case, then I'm all about a furry case Nugget. That sounds, again, both horrifying and amazing at the same time. Wow, a lot of people want to see the furry case for the Nugget. That's a little disturbing, but I mean, I guess we should have seen this coming.
Give the people what they want.
Yeah. Yeah, wow.
Hey, Strawberry Milk says Queens.
Aw,
right.
Thank you. So, all right, I was practicing with Airgeddon earlier today, and I noticed it wasn't picking up the clients on my lab network, whereas Kismet was. Any idea why? Yes. So actually, I got a message from the developer of Airgeddon the other day, which I haven't had a chance to reply to, but his message was basically, why were you using an older version of Airgeddon? It caused that crash. And the reason was I spent all night updating every single thing that I needed that wasn't auto-installed. And as a result, I had so much work as an end user that I just didn't get around time to updating, which would be my snarky reply. But it was really cool, honestly, to show other people about this tool. I've been using it for such a long time. And my critique of Airgeddon is it has basically everything you would want to do with Wi-Fi hacking built into it, which is really cool. And provided you install everything and you update it all the way, because it relies exclusively on third-party tools, and it's just kind of like manipulating them in a framework, then it really doesn't work that well. And there are also a couple like logic traps you can get into where you just basically like you type the wrong thing and you've got to exit out of the program because there's no way to go back or fix what you did. So that would be my main critique of Armageddon. Like if one of the tools that it's using isn't updated all the way, then it might not work properly. So I would say first things first, make sure all the tools that Armageddon uses in order to do its job are working, because those are what you're actually working with. Armageddon is just kind of organizing them. After that, I don't really know why Armageddon wouldn't be able to see something that like Kismet would be able to see, aside from the fact that it is just using, you know, like Aero Dump NG effectively to do a lot of the reconnaissance. And maybe you either have an older version of that or Aero Dump NG just isn't as good as seeing some of those clients, would be my best guess.
Peter says, random question, a problem when trying to crack passwords is a very large password list file size. Is there a way to pipe passwords on the fly from John the Ripper without having to save it to your hard drive? It's been a while since I've used John, but I know in Hashcat there's a way to do that. I've worked with that pretty recently. Not only are there built-in parameters where you can automatically like generate like numbers and alphanumeric characters and like stuff like that to a password
Stop
list.
donating money. I'm kidding. I was kidding. It doesn't go to us. It goes to some Viacom company. It doesn't go to us. But I will, okay, I'm not going to blink, but I will wink, which is 50% of what you asked for. Ready? Okay, that was just for you, both of you. I'll give you the other one because I can't actually wink this side because I'm left eye dominant. But all right, go on. There you go. I just had to give the people what they wanted. People are paying good hard cash to some random corporation to see me blink, so I got to do something.
Yeah, there is a way that you can pipe passwords without having to save it to your hard drive via Hashcat. Not so sure about John the Ripper. It is pretty advanced and matches some of the features and is pretty much like on parity with Hashcat as far as I'm aware. So I'm sure if you look it up, there is a way to do that.
Oh my gosh, thank you. Thank you everyone for accepting that wink. I tried really hard. The second one wasn't so good, but the first one I did think was pretty good. Please educate all of the children equally. That's why we make free content. We're trying really hard.
From Elevation, Allah. Nice.
Yes. Sami and David Bumbal's video, the second one on the show, that was such a hard video to produce. And let me explain what making that video was like. David Mabal, who's lovely to work with, by the way. He's like the most relaxing dude that's not on my team that I've ever worked with. Like very, very calm, like very like accepting of how difficult these demos are. Sat with me for like 45 minutes over where we had budgeted, just watching Armageddon just completely not work. And like all sorts of like crazy stuff was going on. Like I was getting errors I'd never in my entire life seen. Like nothing was functioning. So this poor man sat with me, like doing all of it, and then graciously allowed me to do the final portion, like in the middle of the night when I finally managed to get it working, like hours and hours later. So I have nothing but nice things to say about working with David Bumball. I also hate doing live demos, especially Wi-Fi demos are absolutely awful. They're super annoying to do. Things go wrong all the time. You leak tons of data, like it's tons of blurring work. So I have to hand it to him for doing the logistics on this one and making sure that most of the stuff was blurred, that was identifying, and also like just being very nice about the fact that we could not get the demo working. So again, this is nothing against Armageddon. I think it's great, and it does so much more than most applications do when it comes to making these Wi-Fi hacking tools accessible and easy to use. But if it's not updated properly, it absolutely can crash in spectacular and confusing ways, and that's exactly what it was doing the entire time that I was attempting to do this interview. So wild times trying to teach people about Armageddon.
Yep, that's why we don't do live demos anymore.
Yeah, for the most part. All right. Any other good questions?
Nope. Should we jump into some more old questions?
Yeah, go for it.
Cool. If you want to switch over, we can take a look at that. This one's also on our worshipping episode. Jason says, my worshipping scenario would be buying something, infecting it, and then returning it for repair, knowing some poor engineer or troubleshooter would connect it to see what's wrong. That's kind of mean.
That is mean.
That is a very viable scenario. Someone says, amazing video. Suppose that it was the post office box that it was sent to, and it takes a while to go to the post office. Would it fail? I mean, if it doesn't actually make it into the mail center, then probably, yeah. Of the corporation, if that's what they're asking.
One live question. But God, please tell me that you plan on making a new video on how to install NetHunter rootless on Android. I've had an error at every step of the way, and I can't find any fixes. Me too, bro. Me too. I am so frustrated with that process that the answer is friggin' never. Because like I have been so discouraged by trying to install NetHunter that it's driving me insane.
That's
doing
that
it
damn phone operating system with Kali, right?
Yeah, and doing it rootless sounds like absolutely wild to me. So I haven't tried it in like probably 7 or 8 months. If somebody tells me that it's easier, then maybe I'll give it another shot. But your comment tells me that it is almost definitely not easier than it was when I tried it last. So I may not be doing that one. At least not soon.
Do you know anything about Wi-Fi proximity advertisement banners? Someone's asking how these work and can they be implemented on a pineapple or a nugget? Not so sure about
what is this?
Wi-Fi proximity advertisement banners.
What does that mean?
I'm not so sure about that. We have done like Wi-Fi proximity based like payloads and stuff like that, where you can basically use Wi-Fi geolocation to see if like certain devices or people are in an area, and then use that to trigger an action. Not sure if that's exactly what you're talking about, but
yeah, like, are you talking about like using like a MAC address to like pop up individualized advertisements that are tied to that same MAC address? Like using someone's like wireless or Bluetooth radio or Bluetooth accessories in order to track them from place to place and serve them ads? Because that's like a thing that happens, but I don't know a ton about it other than the technical details of like how it works, which I do know. Let's see.
Pun says, can a normal flash drive be weaponized as a rubber ducky? Not really. For some time on older versions of Windows, I believe like 7 and before, or maybe just XP, you could use auto run, where a regular flash drive could store like a command prompt file and then auto run that when it's plugged into a computer. So for a while, that was a viable thing, but it was quickly discovered that people were using this for malicious stuff, so they disabled that functionality. As for the actual hardware, there's limitations to that. So the ducky will basically emulate a USB keyboard when it's plugged into a computer. And the reason why it's able to do that is because we have like such low level access and control to like the built-in microcontroller that it's like programmed specifically to do that. With a flash drive, it's made specifically to show up as a USB flash storage device. You can't really reprogram that, or even at that, install the firmware necessary to have it deliver keystrokes. So most flash drives, unfortunately, will not be able to do that.
So the question has been clarified to when you are closing a free Wi-Fi, a banner comes up for you to know that it's available. So there are some, I've seen this behavior on my phone sometimes, and these are typically like either like confirmed or pre-programmed or otherwise like recognized by the operating system. I'm not actually sure how this works, but it will actually pop up and show you that this network's available and basically ask you if you want to join it. I've never investigated this function, although I have seen it in action. So, it doesn't automatically connect or anything, but it does kind of interrupt the user and ask if they want to connect to it. So I've typically only seen this at like well-known places, and I haven't seen it for like completely random like wireless networks. So I am a little bit curious about like what kind of authentication is necessary in order to like make it so it pops up. That's a really good question. And then I also see we have another question asked and answered by our audience. Buses Can Fly asked how many packets a packet would pack if a packet could pack. And then it seems as though it would pack all the packets that a packet packer could if a packet packer could pack packets, which is good to know. So thank you for our audience for that. I see there's a follow-up question, but linguistically, I don't think I can handle saying it out loud. Alex, do you care to take that one?
I think I'm good.
All right. What's our next question then?
Cool. Someone says, on our video, the worshipping one again, this is with a Raspberry Pi with one of the SIM modules installed. Can it exfiltrate over a data plan so there's no need to expose yourself with a valid return address or even require the package to return at all? Yeah, that's a valid way to do that. One of the things that we were thinking of implementing was doing exfiltration via Wi-Fi, which of course is pretty noisy and would require like a connection, presumably to like the corporate network. This would be a great way to do that. unless there's a detection method that's specifically looking for, what would you call that, LTE or like mobile connections. I believe that demonstration that you pointed out in your video that was done by the threat researchers, was it Verizon that did that? I don't know if they used SIM modules or not, but I believe I read something about exfiltration.
I think that they were using that sort of exfiltration, which was interesting. And the specific company that brought it up was IBM.
Ah.
So if you switch over to my screen, somebody on our video actually did like find the original video of them showing this off, the full source, and then their offensive security services. I feel like this is a member of X-Force Red. I actually just like really didn't want to say X-Force Red because it sounds nerdy as hell, and I didn't want to give them that. I'm not being competitive here. I just
like
think
a gaming team or something,
right? It sounds like a professional esports team. But I mean, who am I? They're the ones that found this attack, so I'm not talking smack. I'm just saying it sounds like an esports team. But yes, they were the first ones to find this attack or really like prototype it, and I believe that they were shoving some sort of LTE module or something in here as well. Of course, this box, as we well know, is completely illegal to ship and would get you in all sorts of trouble for like 6 reasons. It's not supposed to be powered on and connected. It's supposed to be loose. There's too much lithium in this battery. Like there's lots of reasons why this is a problem. And we know that because our video actually attempted to test some of these theories and quickly realized that we would not be able to fully emulate the device that they use because it is, again, illegal as hell to ship this through the mail.
Yeah.
Still cool, though.
I'm not seeing that on my screen. That's weird.
Yeah.
The thing looks really sketchy, though.
It sure does. It definitely looks like something that is not allowed to be shipped through the mail.
Yeah. The thing with that also is just the setup is a little more expensive. We wanted to see, or basically prove that we could do this for as cheap as possible. So we used a $3 microcontroller and also just a spare battery to effectively do the same thing.
What is our opinion on Graphene OS? I have none. How about
Me neither.
you, Alex? All right. So we have no opinion because we have not tried it. Another question was any upcoming demos on budget microcontrollers. So the one that I mentioned is probably the most upcoming demo, which is using it as a tracker that uses open Wi-Fi networks to kind of send the location of where it is. Aside from that, that's what I'm working on currently. I think that's it for now. So I'll let you know once I start working on another project. Once CircuitPython catches up to my Wi-Fi research, I will let you know.
Hopefully tomorrow, if we finish editing the video, if you guys want to replicate the worshipping project, I think I'm going to be releasing a video on that. So it's also another signals intelligence thing that you can do with a cheap microcontroller.
So is it possible to hack back my Genshin account? Yes. Next question.
Magic robots remarks, corporate mailrooms becoming a Faraday cage in 3, 2, 1.
This is technically what's recommended. I mean, there are guidelines out there that show like corporations like what the best way to store their mail is, or basically have any area where there's like unprotected like devices that have not been like screened for radiating weird Wi-Fi networks or doing other stuff in your building. Like, what do you do with them? Well, typically you need them to be in an area that's isolated and prevents them from radiating anything. And that is a solid move. They probably should be doing that.
Yeah. Any additional content on the Wi-Fi coconut coming soon? Yeah, actually, I'm going to be doing like a setup guide and also maybe a hardware mod guide. I saw a lot of people on Twitter were doing some like crazy mods to their coconut that I want to try out. I just tested like a whole bunch of different reconnaissance tools like T-Shark, Wireshark, TCP dump, and then also a command line version of Wireshark that you can basically use T-Shark commands with. But I did a whole screen capture yesterday, gathered reconnaissance at a place that was far away from my home, so you guys can't dox me. But yeah, hopefully I'll have a video on that coming out whenever.
All right, so last question I think we'll take today is how do you guys define hacking? My definition is getting the system to do things it's not supposed to. That's pretty close to mine. Honestly, my definition of hacking is getting something to do something new that their designers never perhaps imagined it being used to do. What about you, Alex?
More or less, yeah. Finding ways to break and repurpose stuff and use things for their unintended purposes.
Okay, I'm blind. I'm going to take one more question. Is a VM more safer than a VPN? they're totally different things. So one of them is like a virtual operating system that allows you to not use your real operating system. And if any damage were to happen to it, it presumably would not spill over into the rest of your computer. And the other one like connects you securely to another network. So you can use a VM while using a VPN, but
yeah, why not both?
Yeah, why not both?
Extra secure.
Yeah, don't pick, both. All right. I think that's all the time we have for. Thank you again to everybody for sticking around while we had some technical issues, and also for your excellent questions. I really appreciate everybody who also like answers other people's questions in the chat, because sometimes by the time we get to them, somebody has already answered with as much technical information as we could possibly contribute. So it's really great that everybody has been kind of contributing, and that the chat's been so lively. So it's great to hear from all of you. So if you have any question that was not answered today, Alex, what should they do?
Guys can leave them below, or you can tune in next week for the next Q&A.
Yeah, so make sure to go to the YouTube channel and leave them on the channel, because that's how we usually take a look at them. If you leave them in the chat here, we probably won't see them. And you can also message us on Twitter. Big shout out to our sponsor, Per Always Varonis, for letting us do this live stream. Super cool that they let us get to just hang out with our friends for a couple hours each week. And if you want to check some more content out about Varonis, you can always check them out at varonis.com, where they have a bunch of extra free educational resources. So we'll see you guys next week. And bye.